Good morning. This is certainly the right day, the right weather to be having this discussion with you. But this is the video that I've probably been waiting to make, the video that I've been waiting to talk to you about, and the one that's probably been the longest in my mind. And that is, I guess, the question of, is the UK, is it finished? It feels like it's on a decline. Well, it definitely looks like it's on the decline. It doesn't take much to see that, I think. Certainly from my perspective. Maybe you can share your views wherever you are in the UK, tell me how you feel about it. But as a Glaswegian, living in England for 12 years or so, somebody that's considered moving back home to Scotland and the conditions around that. Having a coffee, by the way. Yeah, I'll bring my coffee mug with me. I'm really questioning my ability to want to stay here, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So I've come out for a walk along the canal to chat to you about this. Let's go. What a wet, damp day it is. It's Thursday. Coffee's keeping me warm. But yeah, it's a bit miserable out today. Somebody was asking me in the comments what would happen when it rains. Well, this is your answer. It just gets a little bit wetter outside. So I recognise that question. Is the UK finished? It is a difficult one, right? It's sensitive. I am a proud Scot. I'm very proud of my Scottish heritage. My father, growing up with his family in East Kilbride, a new town post the war. My grandfather, who was the blacksmith of the town, a newly formed town, quite a prominent position. I'm proud of being Scottish. I'm also proud of being British. I've loved my time living here in England. I had a job opportunity 2013. I took that and I moved to England, and I spent 6 months living here myself whilst my wife Yvonne was at home in Scotland looking after our apartment, looking after all of everything that went on in Scotland until it felt the time to move. And then we both relocated and we've both found jobs here in England. So I've been happy here, it's been my home. I've loved it. I've made some new friends in the area, new work colleagues, and also my career just really blossomed when I moved. The opportunities, the salaries, everything that came along with it was great. I really have enjoyed it. In 2020, everything changed thanks to the pandemic, lockdowns, and being at home. For Yvonne and I, it really brought home the fact that we were so isolated from friends and family. Being in the Midlands, it meant that we had colleagues and friends that were based in London, or we had all of our original crew and our own family back in Scotland. And it meant that without the ability to travel, everything was done online. Everything was done through Zoom and video chats, and we really felt separated. And then during that time, from 2020 onwards, Yvonne and her family, they had a number of losses. Her grandparents passed away, her auntie passed away, and a number of other family members. And it was quite devastating for Yvonne. I think really the separation from being at home at that point really kicked in, and we both contemplated moving back. Now, we tried, we sought out a number of properties, but the challenge was that whether it was buying or renting, the prices were just astronomical. Now, most people move away from Scotland to England because of higher salaries, better opportunities, but moving back always felt like it would have benefits. But in reality, in searching it out, those benefits, they just didn't seem to be there. So it was going to cost us almost double our monthly outgoings just to relocate back to Scotland. Now, during that lockdown period, I changed jobs and I got the opportunity to move from a UK-based business to an internationally based business. And I did all that through the pandemic, through the lockdown, and I worked from home before I had the opportunity. And when the lockdown eased a little and I was able to get on a plane and travel, I was able to go meet colleagues for the first time. But that was almost 9-10 months into the job. It was pretty isolating. I'll show you what my journey to work would look like. It's like this. Now I'm sure some of you will be looking at that and thinking, that looks okay to me, John. No commute. And I hear you. It was fun at the beginning, but quickly it becomes wearing, right? Because I work in sales, so I'm expecting to go meet people, talk to people, engage with people, and suddenly everything is through that video screen. Now, 2024, in January, I knew my father was becoming ill. He was super secretive about it in that typical old school way. He didn't really tell me much, but I had an inkling. And I started to go home and visit him every 2 weeks so that he had some company and I could understand what was really going on. So I would spend a couple of days with him and then return to England, but it brought back all of the thoughts about moving back home to Scotland again. And so we started to explore, and I knew there would be a good way to test with my father what his reaction would be, because my dad, in a typical Scots way, when you asked him anything, said no, and then would think about it for a couple of hours and then might change his opinion. So at one point when I thought, he's not looking so good here, Yvonne and I were visiting. I sat with him in the evening and we discussed Yvonne and I's plans to move back home, seeking out a property. And the key question here was to ask my dad if he wanted to come and live with us, because he'd been so independent up until that point. He had been, such a focused man in his retirement. 2 walks a day, 2 walks up in the morning and out and again in the afternoon. That's the kind of work ethic I've grew up with. I sat with him in the evening and I said to him, we're thinking about moving back. Would you be interested in moving in with us? And he said, yes, straight away. So that was a giveaway. Now, that discussion never progressed because unfortunately he passed away. There wasn't enough time for us to think to move back. But in the midst of all of that, my own brain was telling me that it was time for a change. Scotland moving back felt like it would be a good option. But in the end, it looks like exiting the UK, doing something different, getting out of here is the real motivation for us. So when I decided I wanted to start this channel, my vision on that was to try and document the process, like what's it like to try and get out of the UK. And honestly, I'm genuinely being upfront with you here. I don't know if that's for 6 months, a year, or whether we can make it last longer, but I feel the sense of adventure to just go and do something different, right? Now, I'm going through redundancy right now. I'm on gardening leave, that awkward period in between. That finishes at the end of February. I'm in discussion with a couple of companies about job opportunities, but I'm very conflicted within myself. I present these videos, I don't necessarily have a full plan, but within my head, I think about it daily. Like, what would the opportunity look like? Yvonne and I have never been able to afford this before. I've now gone through redundancy and I feel like this is a great chance. We're in our late 40s, we're not getting any younger. And I looked at my dad and all I could see was his decline, his loneliness, living in a cold house, terrified of putting his heating on. And despite talking to him about all these aspects, helping with bills and everything else, he was too proud. So that was really setting the scene for you to understand the last couple of years as to what's kind of bringing me to this decision for Yvonne and I to discuss the opportunity to take a gap year, a career break, something. But in my heart, right now, I'm battling with the opportunity to potentially go back to work. And probably fulfil my dad's dreams of make sure you stay in employment. But at the same time, I look around, okay? I look where I am in the Midlands, and when I travel home to Scotland, I see what's going on. And here's what I'm worried about. Crime. Crime is through the roof. Whether it be the stab incidents, and I have to be very careful with language on YouTube. I'm new to all of this, so I'm treading carefully. But whether it's the crime in London, whether it's the crime in many other towns and cities, it feels like it's out of control. It's dangerous. I'm worried when Yvonne goes out. I'm worried for myself. I don't like going into London. I spent 5 years commuting in and out of London on a daily basis, and now it fills me with dread and fear about going into the city. I'm a fully grown man and I'm terrified to go into the capital because who knows what's going to happen, and I just opt in to stay at home. And I think, what kind of a way is this to live? It feels to me that division is being sown at every single level, whether it be race, religion, crime, vaccines. Everything is created with a left or a right objective, and you're either on one side or the other, and it creates division amongst friends, family. You have to be careful about what you talk about, and that's just not me. I'm a pretty open person. I'm chatting to you now in the exact same way that I would talk to friends. So, you know, I see these videos online about people changing their lives, and I've had so many messages from you guys, people in the comments from the first video saying, I recognise and I deal with the stress and I know what that's like, and I changed my life. And so I'm at a crossroads. Go back into sales, find something else, stay living here, move. And I think at this point, this is a good opportunity to get out. But I'd love to hear from you guys. How are you feeling about life in the UK right now? Are you coping? Are you managing? Do you ignore it all? Do you just pay no attention to what's happening politically in the country and just get on with your own lives? For me, I really struggle with that. My brain wants to over-process, and I want to lie awake at night and thinking about it, and that's not good mentally. So I mentioned crime, and I mentioned a number of other topics. But also, before going back into employment, what I'm thinking about as well is, where does my money go? Where does my tax go? When I left school, I went into a basic retail job. I was a salesperson from the tender age of 16, and I've remained working in sales for 30 years, and I've managed to progress through the corporate ladder, so to speak, work hard, and get to a senior position. And I was lucky enough to find myself with a very, very well paid salary, and I was incredibly grateful. But see, when the wage slip would come in and I would see the tax and the deductions, I definitely was questioning myself as to where that money was going, because I look at the roads, I look at my local town, I look at the facilities that are available, and I just look around the country and I see us handing money off left, right and centre. I see us obsessed with the energy climate. I see inflation, cost of living going through the roof, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better anytime soon. And I don't want to comment on political parties at this point, but I'll say this. The Conservatives had 14 years and are now shouting like they would change the world. And Labour had 14 years of watching and have came into power and don't seem to have any ideas. So to me, they're both as bad as each other at this point. So let me summarise this decision that's playing in my mind. 1, my dad has passed away, and it feels like the pull back to Scotland declines a little. My health, I'm worried about it. Pericarditis, chest issues, and I want to get back to being fit and healthy. And 3, the job situation. Out of work right now, considering new employment and everything that entails. And that is what is playing in my mind in terms of, is this a great opportunity to go on that adventure that I've talked about? And as I said earlier, that could entail months, 6 months, a year, maybe longer, travelling. We might get away and think, yeah, this isn't for us. We're Scottish after all. We don't necessarily do well in the heat. This has been a little difficult for me to say out loud, talk about it, but I'm hoping you'll come on this journey with me and see how it goes. And I'll show you the process. I'll share it all with you, the good and the bad. I'm not here to sugarcoat it all. I'm really not. Hopefully you've seen that from the early videos. But thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the content. More to come. Look at how cold a morning it is. Typical January.